What if we create USA to fund right-wing revolutions in countries instead of this leftist gay stuff? My brother, that is exactly what USA does. What the f are you talking about? It's used for American influence in other countries.
No. Okay, Doge went through this. Apparently there's like drag shows for trans mice in Brazil or something. You wouldn't believe the things that they found that USAID was up to, all right? Things like mass producing pre-digested food for regions that have such bad forms of starvation that they actually can't consume regular food, so they need to have the food that is pre-digested shipped over there and sent to them, which now, because it's not allowed to be shipped off, is just going to go bad and rot while thousands of people literally die. One of the things. There's a new video called America's Downfall. I wonder if it's relevant.
A war criminal once said, "It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal." I'm not Balkan, so I don't usually agree with war criminals, but this one was saying the truth here, because we all saw on video what unfolded between Trump and Zelensky, where an American ally, literally at war with America's enemy for like the last 100 years and the biggest country in the world, was shouted at and scolded by Trump, the vice president, and this guy as well. This whole argument was so artificial, it was crazy to see. Zelensky literally didn't do anything disrespectful or wrong, and they started yelling at him. Now, I'm from the hood, so you know sometimes people come up to you on the street just to start fucking with you and making up any reason to get into an altercation. This is exactly what happened. Demanding an apology, demanding a thank you, so
side note, I've seen them. I've seen the Vances, and they haunt me in the wildest of ways. They almost felt like trading cards. Didn't it feel like, what was it, like the Trash Pail Kids or whatever? That old card series where each one is more grotesque than the one that preceded it. And every day it'd be like, oh my god, how do people keep coming up with variations on this? And then eventually got to a point where it was so saturated, I forgot what he actually looked like. In my head, I was kind of like, his eyes aren't that bulgy, and his face isn't that. I forget though. I'd rather actually live in this reality. I'm just gonna live in a reality where whatever the fuck these, garbage pail kids. That's it. It's the garbage pail kids, but for the vice president. And it turns out none of this is being done by liberals or leftists or progressives. It's being done by the right. Apparently it's right-wingers who are doing it. It's like crypto bros who started treating the whole thing like NFT. And I didn't see that coming. I was like, how does this benefit you? Oh, I guess they just don't give a fuck. They're like, we won. It's game over. We got the whole monopoly board. We also don't like him. We think he sucks, but yeah, I mean, he is the vice president, I guess.
So fucking stupid, especially because this was all on the video and we can see the entire argument beginning to the end. And by we, I mean the entire world saw this unfold, and everyone saw how America treats its allies. And this live TV argument was so bullshit that even Americans think that Trump or JD Vance were guilty of starting everything. The thing is, America is legally required to protect Ukraine because they made Ukraine give up their nukes in exchange for protection from the US.
Well, see, here's, I think, what the last month feels like. It's been like 12 years, but the last month of Trump, I think, hopefully has taught the world that none of it is worth shit. Deals with America, that is. Usually they're just whatever America wants and that it does. But in terms of like, are they going to be honored? I don't know if people realize this yet, but a deal is only as good as the person who is making it is going to honor that deal. Otherwise, it's just but a piece of paper. Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of other countries have had to learn that the hard way. Say, like Iran, for example, effectively signing a no nuclear proliferation deal in exchange to lower, again, some of the austerity measures that were placed upon them by the United States. And then all of a sudden, Trump comes to power, and he's like, nope. And you're like, that sucks though, because like if I was that country, I would definitely be sitting there being like, so what good or what worth is a deal with America if all of a sudden, some rural farmers just start feeling like black women have too many jobs and then vote for the other guy, and then all of a sudden all of it is void. And then it's like, okay, great. So that sucks. And a lot of the things that are happening right now, to say Canada, America is treating Canada the same way America has treated most other parts of the world that it wants to take advantage of. And so now I guess Canada is just getting a taste of what it feels like to be the global South, effectively. Because like, yeah, and I mean, or what other countries have kind of felt like when Canadian mining companies want to exploit them, where they don't really care about human rights, or they don't really care about autonomy, or they don't really care about workers' rights. Canada just goes ahead and they're like, but the sweet, delicious minerals, we want those instead. And then they will give us plenty and bounty and make us nice and rich. So we don't care too much about whether or not these are abhorrent working conditions, and if the money isn't going back to your people, and if this is actually keeping you in perpetual poverty. We don't give a fuck. And so now America's kind of doing that to Canada. And now Canadians, and I guess Europeans, and I guess also Mexicans are like, oh, this sucks actually. This, you know, not to be treated like an ally, but just treated like shit, because at the end of the day, America doesn't care. It really doesn't. And then Trump's doing this thing where he's just like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing that I used to do to countries that we were allowed to do this to. Now I'm going to do it to Canada and Greenland.
In the Budapest Memorandum. Let me start off by saying I absolutely hate the current American rule. America has never been the good guy or anything like that. No superpower really has been, but this is too much, man. We watched America literally curse out their ally on live TV. Everybody knows I've been supporting Ukraine very hard since the war began, and after Ukraine started getting foreign aid, it became a populist move to shit on Ukraine, and all people who know nothing about the dynamics of post-Soviet countries have wanted to say their objectively incorrect opinions about this. Like, I'm sure Theo Vaughn really understands the dynamics.
Well, for this one, it all depends on who he had on last. It's really a roll of the dice there, okay? If he had someone on there who was capable of explaining geopolitics to him half decently, he'd probably come out with a half decent take the next day. But, you know, if he has one of like either Logan or Jake Paul on there who's just sitting across from him and is like, hey bro, yeah, I think we give like way too much money to Ukraine, bro. It feels like we're getting ripped off. I know. How are your NFTs doing? How's the crypto zoo shit doing? That like apparently you grifted all of your fans for millions of dollars for. Oh yeah, that money, that's my money now. That part's cool. Yeah, I'm so rich. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, too much money for them. I know. Fuck them.
Year. He then deleted his post because he's a comedian and can't even fucking point to Europe on a map. And other people who are constantly on Trump's like Lex Friedman, you piece of who would interview a just to hear his side of the story and call him a friend whom he bonded with over their shit.
Not only would he call him a friend, but when he got even the lightest pushback, you know for a fact he would droll out the old test and tried. What's the most important thing? It's conversations. More important than anything right now. It's us to have conversations, even if it's conversations with people we disagree with. And I, for one, do have some disagreements with Adolf. There's no question that we don't see eye to eye on everything, but we can both agree that it's conversations alone that can save society. And then there would be a lot of people who would be like, whoa, brave, yeah, wow, this guy, he gets it.
Shared love of a Russian literature or some shit. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment fucking sucks. If I wanted to hear a Russian guy whining about being poor, they're right here, I would just go and fucking visit. And while Zelensky says that he doesn't think that his public humiliation was planned, I think he's low-key saying it to not fully ruin relations between him and the US, because there's this one Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is extremely anti-Ukraine, and her boyfriend somehow got one of those.
Wait, is this real? No way. No way that's real. I assume this was a joke costume she wore at some point. Yeah, no shot. Unless it's like from her high school days where she's making a joke. I know she dated Zangief. I know, but that was a Zangief cosplayer. She had an affair with Zangief. That part is all true. That's canon. I do not think this is I think if true, if this is an actual photo, which could very well just be a picture of someone who looks like her. It's like that American Idol audition that people like want to believe so badly is true that they just ran with it and they're like, oh, that's definitely her. She did that American Idol audition. It's like, no, that's not her. But either way, have you ever noticed? Oh, sorry. Have you ever noticed how for decades now Hollywood movies are always made Russia the bad guy in their movies? It's like Americans have been programmed to believe Russia must be the enemy at all times.
Rare Oval Office interviewer spots and decided to ask Zelensky this.
Do you ever...
Leonard McDonald, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Very generous of you. Hey, 5 of you just got a subby from Leonard McDonald. Give Leonard McDonald a big thank you for all the subs.
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if you... Do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
First of all, country leaders who are at war with a much larger empire don't usually wear suits. They don't really have time for that shit, you know? It's only the motherfuckers who don't care about this wearing suits because it's not a life or death situation for them, such as Bush during all the Middle Eastern wars and more. You think if...
Yeah, but he did cosplay a little bit as, like, you know, an American pilot. He was doing that. I think he did that for the Mission Accomplished photo shoot. He was happy about that one. And you know what's wild is, like, when I was watching that whole thing go down, like, I am not the dude who sits here 24/7 who needs to, like, you know, put the Ukrainian banner as the background of my streams and talk about how every single one of you should be donating everything out of your pockets to the war effort and Slava Ukraini and all that kind of stuff. No, that is not my stream, right? I think that without question, Russia is the aggressor. Russia invaded a sovereign nation. I believe them to be the bad guys. I do not buy into this entire conspiratorial thing where it's just like effectively, you know, it was the encroachment upon Russia that Ukraine was making that ultimately led to the necessity for Putin to have to annex that one part of the region because there was primarily heavily speaking Russians in that region, and so it's not even really an annexation, and technically Crimea should belong to Russia. Like, you know, ultimately I think you're getting into the conspiratorial Alex Jones side of the, you know, extreme wacky clown shoes left at that point. But you know, without question, I don't think that the U.S. is benevolent either. I don't think the U.S. is effectively doing what they're doing because they believe in spreading freedom and democracy everywhere that it shows its face around the world. They don't do that at all. They try and destabilize nations consistently. If it's into their benefit, they will. If there is a democratically elected leader, they can try to do a coup or successfully do a coup, and then they'll instill a dictator who will be fucking brutal for the people of that nation, so that they can continue to have agreeable exploitation of either the labor, the resources, or something else of that country. That's what the U.S. empire does. It is, yes, the most evil empire operating on the world stage right now. That being said, yeah, Ukraine does not deserve to be illegally invaded by a fucking, you know, gangster tyrant like Putin. The guy is a fucking absolute war criminal scumbag. Fuck him. Even having said all that, I can't believe that you would, like, an America First clown-ass right-wing Republican would sit in a room across from Zelensky, a man who has been witnessing, you know, horrifying war crimes and atrocities and the mass death of his own people, and then try to posture at that moment in history to sit there and be like, well, where's your suit, bro? Kind of tacky for you to not be wearing a suit, bro. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, Jesus. What the fuck is wrong with all of you?
If you're at war with the US or Russia, you're gonna give a fuck about wearing a suit. This is a talking point that has been propagandized from people funded by Russia or being a useful idiot that's...
Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene was dating this guy, and he was part of some, like, America First network. I forgot about that. Is this... Okay, I gotta look this up now. This is too wild. Marjorie Taylor Greene wearing CCCP t-shirt?
Supports them for free. And also...
Digitally manipulated. All right. PolitiFact. A photo shows Marjorie Taylor Greene wearing a Soviet shirt and giving a Nazi salute. Old photos of lawmakers have the potential, this is off PolitiFact, to cause political embarrassment. They show a person in a compromising pose, say giving a Nazi salute. That's how some people have interpreted the gesture being made in a supposed leaked photo of U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. In the image, it appears that Greene is wearing a Soviet t-shirt and a pair of underwear outside of her pants. She's also raising one of her arms in a way that people think it looks like a Nazi salute and could also be interpreted as a superhero pose, and she's also wearing a cape. But a reverse image search of the photo shows this picture has been altered. It appears that Greene's face has been superimposed on the face of the person in the photo in what looks like the original image. It's clear that it's not green, but rather another person pictured raising her arm. An Instagram post sharing the photo was flagged as part of Facebook's effort to combat false news and misinformation on its newsfeed. We found that this photo has been online since at least 2013, and that photo that appears is on Russian and Turkish websites. That is not a real photo of green. We rate it pants on fire. I am kind of curious as to who the original is, though. Okay, so I have it on screen. You can find it if you search it. I don't know if it's wrong for me to show this person's face on my stream, so I won't do it. But it is clearly not Marjorie Taylor Greene. It is another woman who is doing that pose and that picture.
Elon doesn't wear shit either, so these are clearly double standards. Elon Musk is in the Oval Office looking like one of those child predators they catch on YouTube and then beat up, along with a fucking chainsaw, and they're demanding Zelensky wear a suit and tie and make fun of him. So now a country's leader who is defending an aggressive war from the biggest country in the world is being made fun of from a guy who's famous for fucking this woman. And their whole argument was very disappointing to see. They're blaming him that he wants to start World War III, not the country that invaded them. You ever scroll through the news and feel like people are living two completely different realities? One headline is like, Zelensky just doomed Ukraine because he is bad, and the other says Zelensky is amazing. So which is it? Did he get cooked or did he cook? You can get very confused on the internet by these types of articles, but you can also use ground news, which will help you see through the bullshit.
Ooh, that was smooth. That was slick. I didn't notice it until it was far too late.
Trusted with a ceasefire. Russia has been at war with Ukraine since 2014, and they have violated the ceasefire not once, not twice, but 25 times, until of course fully invading Ukraine in 2022. So obviously Zelensky is asking for security guarantees, because there have been at least 25 other cases with Ukraine alone where they have violated their ceasefire agreement. Do you think they became the biggest country?
Why would the U.S. be so involved? Because for the United States, I don't think it's because of benevolence. I think it's 100% because they would be able to weaken someone that they see as a potential adversary, in this case Russia, without having to spend American lives. It doesn't cost them anything. I don't think it's 100% of the benevolence of their hearts. I think, you know, deep down, they like, it's going to be able to if ideally they could succeed in their goals and that they could actually repel Russia in totality, I think that they would see that as an aligned strategic goal for their own goals, aims, and aspirations. It happens to be in this case, which is not often the case in every single, like, you know, military action that the U.S. supports, that they are on the right side because Ukraine is being invaded. And I think it's one of those things where the right kind of ran with this, not so much because I think every single one of them just loves Putin or loves Russia, but they bought into this myth that like Ukraine was intentionally either provoking or perpetuating this war in order to continue to extract weapons and resources from the U.S., which I don't believe at all that if, like, I think on any given day, if Vladimir Putin had withdrawn his troops, had left the area, had stopped bombing them, had stopped bombing hospitals and schools and fucking murdering their citizens, and then just left, then the war would effectively be over. But I think it's also unrealistic to demand that is the only potential way to end it when Russia doesn't want to do that, right? Russia is clearly like, we want Crimea. It's a very important strategic location for us. So we want to continue to either annex that as we, on their terms, they already have, but it's just not internationally recognized. And the same would go for other regions that they're trying to annex, like the Donbass and stuff like that. That's where, you know, Russia stands. And I think like, it's really fucked up to try and turn the whole thing into a cartoon the way Trump and JD Vance and even Marco Rubio, by just being the fucking Nathan Fielder in the room, like just awkwardly sitting there in the corner, like, you know, that's fucked up. But yeah, whether you agree or disagree with the U.S. Aiding or participating in that conflict, there's no question that the man and his people have suffered immensely. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people. Ukrainians have lost their lives. He has had to witness horrifying war crimes. They have had, again, schools and hospitals bombed. There's a reason why the ICC is trying to, arrest Vladimir Putin for war crimes, because he's a war criminal. There's just like no question about that. So to sit across from him and be like, we're going to Jerry Springer this shit, that's fucked. It just objectively, it's fucked. Like I think it's just one of those moments where, you know, everyone is just sitting there like, what the fuck? At the very least, you could say that like the United States is going to be slowing, pausing, or limiting its support at this point. We feel as if there's not going to be any possibility to continue without there being very strong negotiations brought to the table. And we want to immediately begin those processes. That's really different than we want to bring you here for entertainment. We want to Jerry Springer fucking a war and sit you down in front of the eyes of the world while we try to emasculate you. Yeah. Try to do like, you know, the whole cut cage shit, the whole like, you know, the line is on an angle, you cock shame yourself while we are actually like the true alphas and we're sitting there like, why aren't you thankful? Yeah. Why don't you thank us? Why don't you apologize? Why don't you get on your feet and beg? You know, and then like that's just gross. Like again, y'all look like kids. The whole thing really seemed like a bunch of fucking children in the room. Thank you so much for the raid, Kevin Logan. Can everyone go to twitch.tv/KevinLogan1875? Give Kevin Logan a follow back, and also thank you to No Justice MTG. Thank you very much for the raid as well. Can everyone go to twitch.tv/NoJusticeMTG and give them a follow back. And also, if you're on YouTube and you just listen to all me saying that, go give them a follow on the YouTubes. I believe they both have YouTube channels that you can go check out. Aussie Kami Plant Lady, thank you again for that sub. Sadly, we need good people out there on the internet saying the correct and factual things, putting people in the back. Love your work. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. That's very kind of you. And thank you for gigantifying an emote
in the world through diplomacy and not violating their ceasefire agreements. And right after this, Elon, who holds a significant amount of power since he's always with Trump and always keeps cutting services for normal Americans, because why does he care? He's a billionaire. He can cut Medicaid. It's not like he's gonna give a fuck. He doesn't need it. Elon said he wants to leave NATO and the UN. So then all of Europe is just undefended. Fucking North Korea is in the UN. This is the easiest way to destroy your global hegemony. And they did all this within a month. Literally, if Xi Jinping himself was on the phone with Trump and telling him what to do to destroy America in the fastest way possible and bring about the Chinese century, he would not be able to come up with all of this. Like, fuck.
And by the way, I know the meme. I know everyone loves it, right? Like everyone loves the whole kind of like, hey, do nothing, win. It's funny. I'll grant you, it's funny. But even then, I don't think everything is like China is just witnessing what's happening in the United States and being like, this is glorious. Yes, you know, the Chinese century is upon us. We've done it. Trump will now effectively destroy all of the United States. The U.S. is still the world superpower. If you look before you and see the map of the world, there's between 800 and 900 military bases stationed in all corners of this, where there are military bases of the United States. They still have the world's largest weaponry and largest weapon manufacturing industry to such a degree that it just dwarfs every other planet, you know, in terms of like, you know, their own budget. Their Pentagon budget, I believe it's the same as the next 10 countries combined. So no one wants to see the US completely implode into full-blown fascism, because it would be a disaster. Like, we keep making, like, you heard Trump being like, you're about to do World War III. You're about to do World War III. How dare you? How dare you, Zelensky? How dare you try and provoke World War III? Well, I mean, the United States barreling into full-blown fascism would be a lot more horrifying, you know, especially being that I'm located, I'm right here. This is where I'm right here by the line that Trump thinks is an imaginary line between these two countries. I'm just above that imaginary line right there. That's where I'm situated.
Fuck you mean leaving the UN? What can I say? Good job, man. USA replaced Gulf of Mexico's name with Gulf of America, and China built 96,000 miles of rail. And after this clownery, Europeans went like, okay, we knew America was cooked and could not be trusted, but let's actually start doing shit about this. But you guys have to realize that Europeans are pussies who cannot do anything except waste paper through useless voting resolutions. As always, it's up to the European people to do stuff, since their politicians are fucking useless. So Tesla sales have nearly halved in Europe. Europe is actively looking for new allies such as India, China, and Canada. One of Norway's largest companies have announced that they will stop supplying fuel to the US Navy, and every American ally ever is actively looking for new allies now. including Canada, which is
True.
insane. Who knew that threatening to annex your neighbors, tariffing them, and threatening to leave their defense alliance would make them act this way? And motherfuckers were like, oh, you're meat riding China. Motherfucker, I have yet to see the CCP politicians hiling on the fucking stage. I don't like.
That's what I was saying to people. I got the same responses. People like, oh my god, didn't know, when did Lance become a tanky? Fucking the serfs more like the tankies. I was like, first off, I am tanky proof, okay, motherfucker. I said this before. I have defeated all of the tankies. All of them have blocked me on Twitter. Every single one of them. Infrared has blocked me. Jackson Hinkle blocked me. Caleb Maupin, the Spanky Tanky, all of them have blocked me. I've also made the only so-called BreadTube video on tankies, all right? I've gone through the whole tanky arc. I've battled the tankies, and I came out on top. I defeated the tankies. So no, I'm not going, or whatever you consider tanky. This is just the way of the world. I will criticize billionaires in China in the same way I'll criticize billionaires in fucking Canada. I'll criticize multinational corporations, say like Alibaba, for example, or Temu that come from China in the same way I'll do it for corporations that come out of Canada. Neither are good. The problem is not the countries themselves. This is the problem, like the mindset that people get themselves in, where it's just like, this country good, this country bad, this country evil, China bad, China evil, they're evil people over there. No, you have more in common with a worker in China or a worker in America than you do with a billionaire in any of these fucking countries. That's the reality of the world. So the idea that, again, it's very, you know, forced upon us. If you happen to be in the West, you constantly have this thing where it's like, there's good countries and there are bad countries, okay? The bad countries, Iran, very, very bad. China, really, really bad. These are the evil countries. We have to make sure that we keep them at bay, because at any given time, you know, they are going to rise and try and take over the world in the way that you are doing right now, America, all the time. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not seeing the you know, direct threats coming from Xi Jinping right now, where he's like, you know, the new statement coming out of China, they want to absolve Canada, they want to annex it, and they said that they are going to be turning it into another province. So you're going to become a province of China, Canada, and you know, they said you'd be a cherished province, but you got no real choice in the matter, and good luck, because their army is pretty fucking massive. See, that's not them. That's Trump and America. They're the ones doing this right now. They're the ones doing this to a lot of different countries. Like, and same thing for Greenland. If you were in Greenland and you just had your elections and you're sitting there and you're wondering, where exactly do I position myself on the geopolitical stage? You're probably not thinking, wow, the greatest threat to our sovereignty right now is China. Mine is America. The people who are threatening to take over the country is an American, the president, actually. And he's doing that on a repeated basis. And he's not stepping down. He's always ramping up his rhetoric. Every time I hear someone like, oh, he's just joking, he's joking, the next day he'll be like, the line is imaginary. The border between the US and Canada, it's an imaginary line. In fact, I don't understand why it exists at all. There's probably some old statute that we can look at that'll probably remove it. I think technically they're just ours. I think they should just accept us absolving without, you know, too much bloodshed. That would be great. He does that every fucking day.
Therefore, I'm getting paid by the CCP. Bro. My grandpas were CCP shills as well for fighting against the Nazis in the Soviet Union, you fucking idiot. Just like me. And the thing is, they're treating Zelensky so harshly and abandoning the biggest country in Europe, Ukraine, so harshly that they showed to the world they do not give a fuck and will sacrifice anything and anyone for money. They're like trade offer. I get to mine your entire country's minerals and keep them for myself as a profit, and in exchange you get no security guarantees and nothing really. Maybe we just stop bad-mouthing you in the press and calling you a dictator, but that's about it. Maybe. The stupidest thing is that of the money that they sent to Ukraine, which wasn't even that much, Europe sent way more. 70% of that money gets reinvested back into the US military companies, because they send their old stuff to Ukraine and then they need new ones, right? So they order new ones, and then those companies pay taxes and grow the American economy. But they resorted to making Zelensky seem like a fucking beggar
and by the way, that was also one of the reasons why you're asking for why is there such, you know, unbelievable strong support amongst certain political factions in the United States. Like, you can just go through that list right there.
Humiliating him live on stream. They
won't understand anything.
Destroying
Fuck their
USAID
mother.
was the
Sorry.
funniest thing ever, because I saw a
reading
tweet.
it
What if
in
we
time.
create USAID to fund right-wing revolutions in countries instead of this leftist, the gay stuff? My brother, that is exactly what USAID does. What the fuck are you talking about? It's used for American influence in other countries. And yes.
No. Okay, Doge went through this. Apparently, there's like drag shows for trans mice in Brazil or something, you wouldn't believe the things that they found that USAID was up to, all right? Things like mass producing pre-digested food for regions that have such bad forms of starvation that they actually can't consume regular food, so they need to have the food that is pre-digested shipped over there and sent to them, which now, because it's not allowed to be shipped off, is just going to go bad and rot while thousands of people literally die. One of the things. But also exerting a lot of soft power. Absolutely. Yes, it's not benevolence. It's 100% not because, you know, the Daddy America is just suddenly like, you know what, we're tired of all of these geopolitics. Oh, it's so bothersome, so wary, you know, at this point. We're thinking maybe we just start helping the world, healing the world, if you will, and just giving everyone the nutrients they need to survive. We're going to be like, instead of Daddy America, Mother America, and Mother's here, you know, to let you all drink from the bosom and help yourselves. No, it's once again, soft power is going to try and exert American influence in other countries as well through different means. Doesn't always have to be at the barrel of a gun. I think is kind of what a lot of people came to learn.
America does fund right-wing revolutions. That's why they have overthrown literally every single socialist leader or tried to. Don't forget that they've tried to assassinate Castro 634 times with methods such as an exploding cigar, the skin disease diving suit, making him high on LSD in his broadcasting studio so he'd start saying bullshit and ruin his public image, and they sent him a white...
Those are all true, by the way. Those are all 100% true.
And this is what she said. He leaned over, pulled out his .45 and handed it to me. He didn't even flinch, and he said, "You can't kill me. Nobody can kill me." And he kind of smiled and chewed on his cigar. I felt the...
Okay, I don't know if that's true. If that's almost too badass. No one's that hard. Come on. A real human in real life? I want to research this later. I don't know if that story is true. It is? What? He pulled out his gun, handed it to her, disarmed himself, and said, "You can't kill me. No one can kill me," and then smiled. What? How does the human mind come up with... Yeah, no, that's beyond the Giga Chad, all right? You just cucked the Giga Chad in the process, just like through transience, like on the other end of the world. All of a sudden, the Giga Chad was like, "Oh, I have been emasculated. What just happened? There's been a disturbance in the Giga Chad force. Holy shit." Yeah, that's too powerful. I didn't know that. God damn. That's that, you know what, I like learning something every day. I'm glad that's what I learned today. That's my thing.
He was so sure of me. He just grabbed me. We made the love. That's why he's the goat.
What? I read what is it, a short biography on Castro that didn't include that story, but did include something else that I found fascinating, where someone was interviewing him and they were like, "How do you think he will be remembered in, say, like 1,000 years or even like 5,000 years or something?" He's like, "If humanity still exists in 5,000 years, he's like, I hope to not be remembered at all." And I was like, what? And then it was like, yeah, I hope at that point we have evolved to become something better than these brutal exploiters and killers of one another, and ascended to some higher form of a collective being where we all love and work together. And I was like, oh my God, that's one hell of an answer. I would be like, well, good, positively. I would like to be remembered positively in 5,000 years.
USAID was genuinely one of America's biggest soft power weapons to gain influence in the countries it operated in, and America does fund right-wing revolutions. They've been doing this shit since like the 50s. They would overthrow a good socialist or a social democratic leader for an extreme capitalist that they themselves have trained, and then privatize absolutely every resource in that country and all the state-owned companies, and then get money for it, growing the American empire. And if you don't believe what I said, this whole strategy has a term for for it called the shock doctrine, so you can look it up yourself as well, get a bunch of examples on where it has been used. It's genuinely so evil because they are playing with people's lives here, only to satisfy their egos and their capitalist money mindset. And this isn't the grind harder mindset, this is a loot people harder mindset, because the more Trump refuses to help their ally out, the more people will die. And they are pulling this stupid stunt of arguing and actively trying to embarrass their ally and treating him like a beggar. And the thing is, because Trump basically has a cult, his supporters will be like, oh, he's so cool for doing that. Take that, man who's trying to defend his country.
That is actually exactly what happened. If you want to, every single right, even fucking Lindsey Graham, that was the one that blew my mind, was Lindsey Graham. That dude, what was it, maybe even a couple months ago, was just straight up like, Putin is the most horrifying human being in the planet. Slava Ukraini. I even got the words tattooed on my forehead. Slava Ukraini. And then immediately right after this, he was just like, I think we've shown on the world stage that America can't be trifled with. Ain't no one gonna be trifling with America. And I was just like, wow, Lindsey Graham. I did not expect that, of all people. All right, well, I guess you, sir, are for sale. You can change all of your beliefs, just like that.
From the biggest country in the world? Because these people don't realize that they are in a cult following literal billionaires who do not care about the working class. They're literally shock doctrining themselves, where they're privatizing and getting rid of these essential human services.
That's the first time I've heard someone say it like that. Oh, that's good though. Anyone who has actually studied the shock doctrine, look into it. By the way, it really explains what happened post USSR and how the a lot of the post Soviet state got carved out by rich oligarchs and a lot of people, criminal elements as well, and how it became an oligarchy. Effectively, just the richest people got to buy out all these old factories that used to be state owned or state controlled, and there was a breakup of all these other nations and countries. Super interesting shit. But it kind of feels like, yeah, that's what's happening, but just from within now. Like inwardly, America is just being gutted from the inside out by these super powerful billionaires who are just like, oh yeah, no, fuck the poors and fuck all your social safety nets and fuck everything. The copper is for sale. We are ripping it right out of the walls and fuck y'all. That's the new one.
Under the pretense of saving money. Like, yes, man, I'm sure the richest country in the world needs to save money by dismantling the Department of Education, while literally every other country in the world has that department. America already is extremely privatized, to the point where when healthcare CEOs are getting capped, everyone is like,
it had to be done.
And these people still want to privatize everything more, so it becomes even more capitalist and they loot even more money from normal Americans. Of course, they fired a ton of people because they needed to save money, and also they want to cut Medicaid to pay for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts and mass deportations. The GOP plans to roll back the federal healthcare insurance program. This translates to make Elon Musk and other billionaires richer and deport working people, we need to cut the healthcare insurance for normal people. And because of America abandoning their allies and abandoning their people just to...
And by the way, the richest amongst them, the billionaires, they actually genuinely believe that through these hardcore suffering and extreme measures, people will work harder. You will be more productive. You, the working class Americans, every single one of you who labors, you will have to work harder, because if you don't, you'll die. So the worst things are, the more we turn that up, the less social safety nets there are, the less access there is to anything that can actually prevent you from maybe getting sick and dying and having health insurance, and meanwhile combine it with all the weird fucked up shit this guy's doing on the other end. Oh, I've replaced everything with tallow oil. Like, yeah, okay, well then people are going to get really sick and die. And then obviously, yeah, if your view is that human beings are not actually, worthy of living, and you want them all to suffer and slowly, painfully, and aggressively work themselves to death, then...
be literal oligarchy. Everybody's losing hope in the US, including Americans and including GDP forecasts, where they forecast the American economy is going to plunge nearly -3% in the first quarter. It's just crazy to see all this, and it's only been 40 days. We have to be here for the next 3 years and 10 months. Every morning, breaking news Donald Trump, breaking news JD Vance, breaking news Elon Musk. I don't want the news to be breaking anymore. Can it just be Trump making McDonald's or something for once? Please, instead of abandoning their allies? What the fuck even is the strategy here? Also, they're like, yes, Ukraine is bad for wanting money to defend against the biggest country in the world, which is also a nuclear power. But Israel? No worries, man. We'll cut healthcare for our citizens, fire workers, and cut aid to Ukraine. But you're fine because you're just an extension of the US. Oh, and also, on top of shitting on Ukraine and leaving it, he's talking about removing sanctions of Russia. So that is just plain evil, man. Trump's administration just loves fascist dictators. You bet your ass if Trump was with he would be talking about removing sanctions of him and that he's a great guy and like that Czechoslovakia and Poland want World War II and America abandoning Ukraine like this reminds me of the words of Georgia's first president.
Between the West and the Soviet Empire, there have always been deals. Yalta is known. Munich is known. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is known. Yes, Malta is known, and many other things are known as well. And let's not be on the side of the empire. Be on the side of your own nation and not on the side of deals with the West. Be on the side of our nation and serve your nation. This is the duty of the parliament and the duty of a deputy. And not play a double game between the empire and us.
And the egg prices are still going up. TLDR, don't trust billionaires. Like and subscribe.
Well, not to mention, like, when it comes to egg, they're just not going to bother living in reality anymore. I saw Jack Posobiec or Ed Mokeness or whatever just be like, inflation down, egg prices down, keep winning. And then Donald Trump make some truth statement like, egg prices so low, never been this low, incredible, lowest egg prices ever. Now they're just not going to live in reality. They'll continue to say things that just are just, you know, objectively, you can see it for yourselves. You can look at the average egg price and see that it is increasing. But yeah, got a link. I do. This is Gatsu.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Voltimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.